I was able to rewire my mind without a vision board. And it's because I got to the bottom of why my mind was so messed up in the first place. And usually it's because I was programmed by things that were not me, programmed by society, programmed by limiting beliefs. And when I broke that all down, my actual vision came to life. And if you're experiencing difficulty with your mind and you're constantly questioning, like, oh, why is my mind like this? Why do I keep getting these kinds of thoughts, these kind of questions? And I keep putting myself down and I'm not getting my vision to appear faster. I'm going to go over how the mind behaves, the problems of the mind that affect your vision, and how this one thing outweighs your mind and it contributes more to your reality than what goes through your head. And why listen to me? I have spent the last 5 years studying spirituality, manifestation. I spent over $20,000 in courses, silent retreats, mentors, and been able to do some pretty cool stuff. Had a soul searching travel in India for about a month, visited like 6 different cities, met like a Baba there, and used all that information to transform my life. Lived in Chicago, danced for Detroit Pistons, grew my dance account to 32,000 followers, and now I currently moved to my dream city. And I was like, if I can transform my life like this, I'm sure others can too. So I've worked with a bunch of different people, like doctors, people with trauma from brain surgery or war, entrepreneurs, and pause the video, take some time to look at this because this is what you can expect in your life when you actually do the work and do the transformation. And if you want some personal help, apply to work with me in the link in the description. Let's get right into it. So, the key here is understanding how the mind behaves before we even identify the problems or how we can rewire the brain. Because, in order to understand how something can be changed, we have to understand how it even works in the first place. Now, actually, this isn't going to take too long. See, the mind behaves in a couple of different ways, but let's see how the mind is set up in this reality, okay? So we have the world, okay? The material world. If this is, Earth, if you can't tell. The material world, and then we have us. Let's call us as the witness. We will always be the witness, right? We're not the body, we are not the mind. We are witnessing reality through the body and the mind. And so we have the brain or the mind in between, okay? You can't tell, this is the brain. Through our perception or through our awareness, we see the mind, and our mind sees the world. But the mind has this thing, which I like to call glasses. Okay? And these glasses act like a filter for your reality. And this filter is simply your beliefs. Okay? Who you believe you are, your likes, your dislikes, your preferences, your opinions, everything that comes from the world gets filtered through the sunglasses that you're wearing, and then it enters your awareness. And there's actually something in between here, which I will get to in the last section, right? Which is the key in how to change your mind, right? I'm going to add like this. So stay to the end if you want to see what is actually in between the mind and our experience of reality. Now, this is an eyeball. This is our awareness. Our awareness experiences the mind, and the mind has a filter based on our beliefs and identity, which experiences the universe, right? the world, and the world is objective. It is what it is, but we don't take it as it is what it is because it's filtered through our ego, our identity, and then we experience that filtered reality rather than objective reality. And the mind behaves like water, bro. It takes the form of anything you put it into. So this is water. If you put it into a container like this, it takes the shape of this. You can think of it as like a gooey, watery material that is constantly morphing and can fill any idea, thought, vision, let's just say noun, person, place, or thing. It can literally fill in all these things. And also, it behaves like a monkey. Okay, the mind is also monkey like. It constantly wants to move. It's like a child, right? It's constantly forming and judging opinions and making things out of nothing, even though there might be nothing there. Making mountains out of molehill. That used to be a huge problem for me because if I have to do a task, if I have to confront someone, if I have to talk to a boss at work, instead of just doing the thing, because of my filter, I would make it a mountain, even though it's just like a small task, right? And so the mind is constantly framing, whether you know it or not, is constantly judging. And I like to go a little bit deeper on what judging even means. Judging is the act of giving definitions, giving descriptions, having opinions. It is constantly doing this act. And if you keep the same opinions long enough, it turns into conclusions. And conclusions, if kept long enough, they turn into your belief and identity. And a lot of people are doing this without their awareness. It's all happening without their awareness, even though it's being experienced. So, this is how the mind behaves. Now, the problems of the mind is what's causing like the current reality, right? It seems like we can never escape our mind. It's constantly loud, it's constantly noisy. But there are a couple of problems and root cause issues that's causing the noise, that's causing the your reality or your vision to not manifest fully. So, what are those problems? Those problems are mind identification, over education, imagination, let's see if more come about, but let's stick with these three: mind identification, over education, and imagination. So, what do I mean by mind identification? So, in the model, that we are the awareness, the witness, the observer, experiencing the mind, which then experiences the world. People usually forget that this is who they are because this is the true identity, right? What is the it's it's what is the awareness? It's that sense of I, right? It's the sense of me, right? Which is basically raw awareness, like I said before. But instead of acknowledging and accepting and realizing that we are awareness, we are not the mind, people start assuming that they are the mind, right? They start believing this story. I am my thoughts. I am the visions that come in my head. I am the ideas, because it's coming from me, right? They believe that thoughts are coming from them. They believe that ideas, statements, that internal dialogue is who they are. But that's not the case, because there's this age-old line, which is, let me just type it out actually. If you can observe it, then you are not it. This one line defeats the whole mind identification problem. Because if I can observe this pen, that means I am not this pen. The pen is the experience, and I am the experiencer. Same thing with the mind. The thought, the idea, the noun, the person, place, or thing, is the experience. But I'm the experiencer. Therefore, I am not my thoughts, I am not my visions, I am not my ideas, I am not the dialogue. I am the awareness that is observing those things. What is awareness? We'll get into that later. And so, that just solves problem number one, mind identification. Just because you get an intrusive thought doesn't mean you're that intrusive thought. When you're standing from a tall building and your mind tells you jump, are you going to jump? No. And the problem is, some people start believing they are everything they get. Oh, I'm getting this disgusting thought of like harming myself or whatever, and they start being mean to themselves, like, oh, because I got this thought, I am a bad person, I am not healthy, I am not safe. No, bro, it's just your mind trying to make sense of things in its own way. It's a judgment making machine, it's a pattern making machine. That doesn't mean you are the pattern making machine. It doesn't mean you are the intrusive thought. And so if you can observe it, that means you are not it. You are something that is observing it. What is that something? Awareness. We'll call it awareness for now. Now, over education. This is a huge one because we live in an intellectual based society where we put knowledge and intellect on a pedestal. The problem with this is that your brain and your mind is like a canvas, right? If I say, think of an apple, you just saw it. If I say, think of the words in the font that it's written in, Harry Potter, you saw that logo, right, in the font that it's written in. So our mind holds all these points, right? You can call this as education, as knowledge, as data points, as filters, right? And the brain is just constantly connecting these points, right, in a very neat, hopefully neat fashion. But what if there's just too many points and not enough space for the lines to connect, right? Then it would just look like a mess, a tangled up knot, right? If I were to say this physical world is Maya, it's an illusion, it's only 1% of the truth, it's not the whole truth, so don't believe everything you see. With an overeducated, highly scientific mind, all the counter arguments would pop up to your head because there would be no space to take in the knowledge of Maya. right? You're just too smart. You're just too educated. So for me, it was whenever my parents were to tell me something from their experience, because I was on like my spiritual moral high horse of like, oh no, my nervous system is cleaner than yours. I can feel more. That itself is a data point that was stopping me from listening to my parents' words. And it was tough for them to see me be so rebellious because I was overeducated with spirituality and just not in the present moment. I hope that analogy made sense, right? If I were to if I were to say that the sunlight is healing more than it causes damage, your previous education about like, oh no, the sun has UV light, it causes damage to the skin and eventually causes cancer, and I were to say no, the sunlight actually heals, the UV light is not as strong as people think it is. In fact, it doesn't cause cancer. Artificial light causes cancer, especially during sundown, because blue light in artificial light is way more potent and we're exposed to it much longer. There are two opposite sides here, but how open are you to receiving this knowledge without fighting back, without, pushing the education that you already know? How open is your canvas to receiving the Maya? I'm not telling you to accept it or deny it or have an opinion about it, just to even see it enter your space. Because if the overeducation is there, the defense mechanism comes up. And I had to really catch this when I was learning from Guru Pashupati about the universe, about immortality, about how there is no difference between me and you. There is no difference between God and us. God is us. I don't have to worship the idol at the temple and think that it's bigger and separate from me. It is a part of me. I am a smaller part of it. To accept this entire knowledge, I had to keep a very empty cup, a very open vessel, a very plain canvas. In the book, the Buddhism book that teaches about non-duality, which is called The Crystal and the Way of Light, he talks about if you are a student trying to learn, the cup better be empty so that the master can fill it with new tea. Because if it's already filled, then there won't be anything to learn. And so the second thing is a too much knowledge means you're close-minded. Yes. When you're stuffed with too much education and too much knowledge, it is going to be very hard to empty it and learn new things and reframe it, right? The whole point of this video is to reframe your mind. But how can you reframe your mind if you already know too much and you're proud and your intellectual ego's, deep up your ass because you already know so much from your previous education? It's going to be really hard to change. Now, the final one, it's rather simple. I'll keep it quick. Your awareness, right? Your awareness does not know the difference between imagination. Let's do imagination. Your mind is your awareness, and your brain does not know the difference between imagination and reality. So if I were to say, or if you were very hungry and you started thinking of ramen and pizza or like a dosa or biryani, and you just started smelling the aroma of biryani enter your nose, and then you start feeling like the rice in your mouth is going to start salivating even though there's no biryani in sight. So your awareness is going to start believing that imagination. It doesn't know the difference of a real biryani or the biryani in your imagination. And The problem is people start imagining negative realities, negative outcomes, and your brain starts to believe it as if it was true. Because when your brain believes something as true, it sends the signal to the body, and the body starts creating chemicals, right? Whether it's a positive reality or a negative reality, it's going to correspond in positive chemicals or negative chemicals. And so I want to ask you this: how often and how unconsciously are you thinking of negative imaginations, negative outcomes? What if things go wrong? What if things don't go right? Oh, it will never go right because I suck. Oh, I'm just at a disadvantage. Oh, no, I can't. Right? Those self sabotaging patterns in your mind, even though it's not real at all, like you still probably have a very good chance of manifesting whatever you want to manifest. Even though, you know, the reality is totally in your favor, but you start thinking of negative things. And then it starts affecting your body, which starts creating chemicals in your body because of your nervous system. How often are you doing the negative things unconsciously? You go into the la la land in the quantum field of infinite possibilities, but rather than imagining positive things, it's negative. Over time, this settles into your belief and identity. Even though reality is what it is, it is what it is, you know? Anything is possible, right? If you really work hard, you know you could be the next Steve Jobs if you have the vision and the passion and whatever. If you really wanted to, you can, you know, bench press or squat 200 pounds. You know it's totally possible, but your imagination says otherwise. And so these three things are the main problem in shifting how your mind works, in rewiring your brain. And that's why it's really hard for some people to upgrade their brain, level up to a new vision, a new identity, a new way of living. Because, you know, the worst case is they believe that they are their mind. And if they believe they are their mind, then they're cooked, bro. Like you're never gonna be able to step away from the thought. You're just gonna be like, oh shit, I am the thought, which creates this phenomena where you start going into that reality of that thought, even though it's not real at all, of like that bad scenario. And maybe you're just too stubborn. Maybe you're just so close-minded that you can't allow new ideas and far-fetched like ideas into your canvas because you just know too much. You already set your foundation and your ideology on what you know and not what you don't know, which creates a closed mind. Now, the way I was able to snap out of this, to snap out of my old version of thinking, my old frequency, was to first, I never confirmed or denied emotionally. So, all the Vedic and ritualistic and Hindu traditional things that I was taught as a kid, I never confirmed or denied with emotion. You know, I was just like, I would play. I would keep playing with those concepts in my head. So nothing was ever too serious, right? The second thing I learned is that we are electromagnetic beings. We are not the mind, we are not the body, we are the awareness that perceives the mind and the body. And so, this awareness is electromagnetism. So, if I were to say, take your attention to your feet, Take your attention to your heart. Take your attention to the screen that you're watching this on and observe the edges. What you just did there is you took your awareness and took it to different parts of your body and the screen. And what happens is if you're stuck in your head, if the awareness is only in your head and it's clogged with so much content and information and intellect, that's what leads to, you know, a stuck, closed, um, constantly racing mind. And that's what creates that, limiting identity when it's in the head and it's already clogged so much because you've been using it for work, for reality bending with your current knowledge. And so what I realized is, holy shit, I am not the mind, because I can take my awareness to my mind and away from my mind. And so I was like, okay, if we are electromagnetic beings, that means everything is a wave. That means everything is a vibration. Right? And I was like, okay, so what are thoughts then? Thoughts are electric. I'm like, okay, cool. If the brain is mostly electric, where does the magnetism come from? How am I the magnetic part? And that's where the heart is. The heart is magnetic. And so for every thought that passes through our mind, our nervous system also feels the exact same thing. It feels the exact same thing. But the difference is magnetism carries more weight than electricity because magnetism pulls and pushes. And we have two types of thoughts. One that we care about a lot, and one, we just don't care that much. And for the thoughts that you care a lot creates your electromagnetic aura and your field around you, because for whatever reason you care a lot about that thought. So if I were to say Harry Potter sucks or Star Wars sucks, I personally don't care about either of those. I'm not going to be affected. But you might be. If you were to say Avatar The Last Airbender sucks, then I would be like, yo, watch what you say, because that show holds a special place in my heart. Okay? Same thing for anything else in life, right? About finances, about your health, about relationships, about your past, about what the future could be. How much care do you have in your heart? Because that's what activates your thought from just electric to electromagnetic. Because our brain is simply just like a Wi-Fi router, right? It's just collecting information, making judgments, making pattern. But the magnetic part is what turns it from electric to electromagnetic. Okay. And so what is this practically? I'm sorry, I just want to draw waves. I don't even know what this is anymore. So practically speaking, what does that become? This is a hitting point, because this outweighs your mind and it contributes more to your reality. When you have a thought with emotion, because that's what care is, it equals your reality. Why? Because this is your belief. So this carries the most spiritual real estate. Emotion carries the most spiritual real estate in your quality of life, in your manifestations, in who you are. How much do you not care? How much versus how much you do care, right? And the universe, right? So let's say we are this body and we are emitting a certain frequency, and that frequency is your thought plus your emotion. The universe is going to read your frequency. And your frequency is largely determined by your emotions and how you feel about things, right? This is the data, and your emotion is the description of the data. It's not going to necessarily read your data. In fact, the universe is simply just data. It's going to read how you define data. Again, what is data? Thoughts, person, place, or thing, ideas, concepts, past, future, manifestations, ideologies. It's how you approach and how you feel about those things, which emits a wave, which also creates chemicals in your body. Stronger chemicals means more care, whether it's positive or negative. So don't you think it's in your best favor to learn how to feel about things more neutrally or more positively, so that the universe reads your aura as more positive and more attractive and more magnetic rather than repulsive? Because let's be honest, negative energy is repulsive. A person who constantly criticizes and condemns and complains about anything is just more repulsive. What we want to do is catch how we feel about these thoughts. Can we keep an open mind? Can we realize that we are something that experiences thoughts and we have a choice in how to feel about those thoughts and we are not the mind? Can we choose to unlearn and not constantly learn and fill our beautiful vessel with even just more content, right? You know, in the spiritual game, in the manifestation game, there's a lot more to unlearn than to learn. Because when you unlearn, you maintain emptiness. You maintain emptiness, and any thought that comes to you will go right out of you because there's nothing blocking you. There's no knots. You're open-minded. You want to maintain clarity, not opinions, conclusions, and all that gizmo. And besides, we want to be hollow and empty. Because, let's be honest, most of reality is 99% space and 1% matter. In the canvas of our mind, there should be more space than data points, because only then electricity can move through those data points. And when I did my silence retreat, the main meditation I learned is being hollow and empty. Can you feel the space in your throat, the space in your nose, the space in your guts, the space in your heart? Our entire body is porous and empty. We want to realize that we are simply space with matter as only 1%. Right? We are mostly spatial beings. Electromagnetism is also space. Right? Wi-Fi is just also space, even though it's still energy. That's not material. So, to the best of your ability, how can you maintain your empty, opinionless state so that you can choose how to feel about your thoughts and ideas and your future and your manifestations? Because I know you want to live that 10 out of 10 life. But the person who's 10 out of 10 doesn't need anything. They're good with or without the manifestation because they're constantly empty. Whatever flows into them flows out of them, and they are not clogged up. This is what got me to surrender my desires, surrender any emotions and tough memories from the past or doubts about the future. I just let it go. I avoided forming too many definitions, descriptions, and opinions because the freer my mind, the freer I can dance. So I hope you understand that your mind is just a tool, it's not who you are. The emotions that you place on your mind is way more important than the contents of the mind itself. So the quicker you can be to erase what you know and replace with new ideas, new concepts, it shows that you're malleable, that you're free. You're like a little kid. You don't need to hold on to anything like an old grumpy man. And always remember, you are not your mind or your emotions. You are awareness itself. You are totality itself. You are the canvas. You are not the contents of the canvas. You are the field of energy. You are not the things or the matter inside the field of energy. You are the infinite 99% of space, not the 1% matter. Always remember that you are the universe. You are the field in which everything occurs. Always remember.